Hallelujah. We bless you, Lord. Oh, oh, oh. We glorify your name. Oh, we glorify your name. This world, we glorify your name. You were awesome, oh God. King of all kings, there is just one. You cannot change. Father, oh, you cannot change, 'cause you will not change, 'cause you are the one and only God. There's one faith. He's my Father. I praise you, oh my God. I praise you. Help me sing and say I praise you. Maybe in the valley, but I choose to say I praise. Maybe on the mountain, but I still choose to say I praise. All of my heart and soul, I choose to say I praise you. Oh, I praise in every situation. I choose to say You will never fail.
Well, good evening, everyone. King's Chambers, Danny Oates here. So glad that you have joined us tonight. We've got an amazing guest and friend for you to enjoy tonight. But I've just got a few shout outs. We've got some people that are coming on. Great to see you. Neil, here we go. Let's see. We've got, put that up. There we go. From Dewsbury. And then we got Rachel from East Midlands. And then we can see some more people coming on across the platforms. So why don't you just keep continuing to comment, keep continuing to say hello to people, and we're just going to have an absolute ball. Now, my guest last week was Helen Yousaf, and she was an absolute powerhouse, absolutely amazing woman of faith, woman of ministry, woman of the Holy Spirit, and just such a beautiful person inside out. And so if you missed that last week, you can catch up on that by heading over to my YouTube page, King's Chambers. You can search that out, and on there you can find conversations that have taken place over previous months and even years actually, as well as other content like music and conversations for myself as well. So if you want to go and catch that, you can go and do that at your leisure. But tonight, my special guest is a friend where we go way, way, way back. And I'm so incredibly blessed and chuffed that he's agreed to come and be interviewed and have an amazing chat. So his name, he's Mark Greenwood. He's Elim's very own evangelist as well. And I think there's no better way actually to introduce my guest this week than to show you what people are saying and what people are thinking about him. So just before I bring Mark on, let's watch this, and we'll see you on the other side of this message, and then we'll get started. Here we go.
So this, did you notice how I wrapped that round twice? There was a time I couldn't even wrap it round once. We just had to secure it at the rear, okay? It's opening up, it's opening up, it's opening up. You might as well say yeah, because that's what I'm doing. Anybody? Yeah? It's like, what do you think, sir? Yeah, lovely. What do you think? Yeah, yeah. What do you think? Yeah. But actually, it was so crucial, so critical. It started me and my family on a journey, and we begun to discover that whatever experience we'd had of God and Christianity before, we'd completely got it wrong. How many of you know that things aren't always what they seem? I am not just a machine, a very lean, mean fighting machine, all the same. But I am not a machine. My heart is a flesh heart that beats and wants to please God and wants to love God. Why? Because God's heart pumps with love for every single one of us.
Yay!
Hey!
Good to see you, my friend. How are you doing?
I'm good, mate. It's always worrying watching those things because you can't live up to what people say about you, can you? That's the problem. But yeah, I'm good, mate. I'm good. It's good to be with you. Do you like the backdrop?
I love the backdrop. It really, really highlights your good side.
Doesn't clash with my eyes or anything, does it?
No. I might take my glasses off actually because all my lights are like glaring everywhere and I could just see it like ricocheting off.
Oh, mate.
So people might want to see my beautiful eyes. You never know.
They will, mate. If I take mine off, I'll see nothing. It's completely blurry, so I better leave it on.
So we go way, way, way back actually, don't we? When I think about it,
We do, mate. We do, yeah. Can't remember how long ago. It's got to be over 25 years, hasn't it? Knocking on
Easy.
the door of.
Yeah, easy.
It's got to be, hasn't it?
Yeah.
Back in the day.
So, like the guys we've had on sort of previously, what we tended to do is these sections I've sectioned off into different topics that people have actually requested to speak about. So the very first set we did, I had Chris Bow and Dave Haddon, and they were very much kind of the father of worship to the UK and brought lots of release and the rest of it. Amazing time there. And then this one is been very much geared towards the prophetic and evangelism. Okay. So right at the outset, I know people have asked me, can we do something on evangelism? But I know there's probably people watching who go, what's evangelism then?
Yeah.
And to you, what's evangelism?
Q. I should know, really.
Yeah.
This is a brilliant thing. We do overly complicate it, but the word evangelism is just like, it means good news, doesn't it? It's like my title in Elim, I often say this, my job title is National Evangelist. That means I'm national good news. It's not a bad gig, is it?
That's a very good gig.
Yeah. So it is literally just about being, first of all, being good news, and secondly, bringing good news when it's the right time to say something. But we get really stressed out about it, don't we, for all sorts of reasons. But yeah, evangelism is just about telling people the good news of what God has done for the world.
Wow. And well, let's go back somewhere near to the beginning then, because you obviously were a child at some point, and then a teenager, and then all this kind of happened. But take us back to the days when I suppose you hadn't even heard of the word evangelism. Maybe let's go back to pre-conversion, or pre-giving your heart to the Lord, or whatever we want to say.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't brought up in a Christian home. None of my family were Christians. My mum, she went to a pretty sort of traditional, without going into too much detail, kind of church-type school, and really strict. So that kind of put her off anything to do with it, really. Mum and my biological father split up when I was young. My biological father was an alcoholic. I use the phrase biological father because when I talk about dad, I mean the person that adopted us. Right. Jimmy Greenwood is his name, and that's when I became a Greenwood. So when I speak about dad, that's what I mean, because that's my dad. But yeah, so mum and biological father split up. Mum got remarried, but but he wasn't a Christian either. And in fact, he classed himself as he called himself a lazy atheist. What he meant by that was, it's a great phrase, isn't it? What he meant by that was, he decided there was no God, but couldn't really be bothered to find out whether it was true or not, which I think is just such a brilliant description, isn't it? It's very accurate, does what it says on the tin. But all that changed, really. I was about 12 years old. I'd been grounded for 6 weeks. And I'm not willing to tell anybody why as well, because actually still to this day, I'm pretty embarrassed about it, to be honest with you. But this guy called Brian came and knocked on the door of our home. He'd only met Jesus 6 days before. 6 days before, he wasn't a Christian either. He came and knocked on the door of our home. My dad opened the door, and here's Brian with this big smile on his face, saying, "What do you think about life after death?"
Wow.
Which is not what you expect, is it, of a Saturday night in Bradford? Like, normally it's like, "Can I have my Betterware catalogue back?" That's what we normally expect. Yeah, have you got anything you want to order? You know. So that was a bit of a shock, but he looked like he had something, and so Dad invited him in, and over a period of probably 6 weeks or so, we mixture of conversation in the home, going along to the church. I think it was Paul and my sister who first became a Christian, and then the rest of us kind of followed. But Brian, actually, Hardacre, who knocked on the door of our home, he probably, well, not probably, he introduced me first to the concept of evangelism, because I was a direct result of some evangelism. And then very early on, I was like, do you remember the sketchboard, Danny?
I do.
Do you remember that?
I do remember the sketchboard. Now, let's just have a look at this here. Watch this. Hey!
There we go.
Look at that.
Mate, look at that. That looks like we've planned this evening. So that sketchboard there is, I'm probably about, I'm going to say about 23 there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's at Fraysthorpe Camp.
Wow.
Which it's either there or at Bridge Street that you and I first met. I'd been a full-time evangelist. If that's 20, let's say that's 23, 24 years old, then I've been a full-time evangelist for about 5 years.
Wow.
At that point. So I did that sketchboardy stuff on the streets. But then 3 days before my 18th birthday, I left Bradford and went and trained as an evangelist full-time. So that's where it kind of got developed in me, really.
How many times have you said, if you can't read it, just rub your eyes, blink, and then focus on the white?
You know the lingo, mate. You must have done it.
Well, in my kind of early days, I did a couple of years out kind of doing the kind of gap year type thing with an organisation called Task Force 2000. So I am well versed and trained in the actual sketchboarding.
We'll have to have a sketchboard off one of the days.
A sketch off.
A sketch off, yeah. See who does the best ladder lettering.
Oh, amazing. So, I mean, interesting, when we met, you may not realise this or know this actually, because I don't think I ever really shared it with you, but when I was beginning to start to think, you know what, maybe there's an itinerant kind of calling in me, there's a kind of a moving around and serving God in the field of worship. Me and you met, and you may remember meeting, but may not remember the content of it, but we met for breakfast at a little chef just at the end of the, I can't remember what the motorway is, in Bradford. Do you know where the main road that goes out and then it drops down to the M62?
Yeah. So the M606.
It's M606, that was it.
Rewley Avenue, Mayo Avenue, Rewley Lane, Mayo Avenue, little chef.
Yes, and we ordered like, we call it the little sort of chef, but it's the little thief really, because it's like,
it's a little thief.
It's like it was like £28 breakfast or something stupid like that, but.
Well pricey.
But I don't even know if they exist these days. But the content of that conversation, you were gracious enough to literally let me chew your ear off, right from practical stuff, which we don't talk about what we need to, like how to run finances as part of a ministry.
Yeah, absolutely.
How to you know, the thing between trying to not touting for work, but obviously there's an element of that, but how do you do that with staying in right good standing? So we went right around the whole topic. So at least, I mean, obviously things change and, you know, we develop all the rest of it, but certainly for a massive amount of my early years were based and helped through those conversations of you allowing me to chew your ear.
Oh, mate, I'm so glad we did, mate, because it's brilliant, isn't it? What
It
you're
is.
doing, it's fantastic.
And then we did. I seem to remember we did a few evangelistic events, to use that. A few good news events.
Yeah, do you remember those, mate? Those
I do.
days. No, because you've actually got a really nice voice, haven't you? Which is always helpful when you're singing for a living.
Yeah.
You know, I do think it's quite helpful.
I mean, it's an aside thing, really, but you know, one of the things that and I think I mentioned it when you were doing something with another mutual friend, Darren Edwards, where there's a difference between how I would lead at, say, a room full of people that was not yet sort of Christian, as opposed to like the Sunday morning service where most people are Christian. And it was interesting how speaking with Helen last week, because she was saying that she would go into those kind of situations and actually she would speak, she worded it as sing prophetically over people. So people would come and God would whisper things into her heart and then would kind of speak that out, sing that out over people. And she said that she saw people have an encounter with God through that and actually kind of get kind of saved. So I suppose from a kind of talky point of view, how does that play out in your world? Is there this kind of tension or junction or kind of conversation that goes on where you might get to kind of feel something that God might be saying specifically to someone, or, you know, is evangelism kind of like, you know, in a sense to the masses?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a bit of both, if I'm really honest. That always sounds like it's a cop-out answer, isn't it? But I also feel, I guess I understand what part I've got to play in the world of the evangelist, not even in the world of the church.
Right.
And I think for me, there's things that God has placed on my heart and developed in me that have shaped who I am. I mean, at the beginning of this year, I've been in full-time evangelistic preaching for 33 years. And I can tell you the key areas that are my, in fact, specialism might not be the right word, but three things that God has really placed in my heart that shape everything I do. So number one, massively believe that God wants me to equip people. Yeah. So as an evangelist, I'll say this in all humility, I think I'm one of the best equippers out there. Okay. Now I mean that in all humility. I don't mean that in an arrogance, because I've lived this stuff. I've developed this stuff. I'm a practitioner. Now, prophetic evangelism, don't invite me to do that, because there's other people like Helen Yusuf, who's the best out there. You know what I mean? But that doesn't mean that there won't be times when I'll move in the prophetic. Yeah. But I'm not going to advertise myself as a prophetic evangelist, because I know that training, communication, like articulating the Christian faith to people that don't know Jesus in a way that the uninitiated can understand what I'm talking about. Okay. And then the third thing is understanding the process behind which people come to faith. Wow. And so therefore, as an evangelist, in terms of a preaching evangelist and calling people to follow Christ, yes, I see people become Christians, but there would be other evangelists that would preach the gospel that might see more people make public decisions. Now, the debate's out as to whether they're becoming Christians. That's another debate. Sure. But I can tell you, three of my really dear friends, when they preach the gospel, they will probably see more people make a first-time response. Barry Woodward, Mark Ritchie, and Jay John, right? And that's not because I'm not fruitful, because I do see people come to Christ, but actually because God uses me a lot to nudge on the person who's an atheist. or nudge on the person who needs their perceptions changing. And because I understand that, then there's more in my talks that's geared to doing that and not just pulling in the salvation net. Does that make sense? So I think it's really important in the field of evangelism that we understand that. I think in business or whatever they call it, the USP, don't they? The unique selling point. Putting it in a biblical context, understanding that the gift that God has placed in you and not worrying about the stuff that he hasn't placed in you. So it's like, for me, equipping, communication, and the process by which people come to faith. That's the stuff that keeps me alive. It ignites me and I get passionate about it.
I've got a question here. That's someone's, because I'm on the kind of text here as well. And
cool.
So someone's basically asking the question about how much of the Bible do you need to know to be an effective evangelist is the word they've used, but I'm assuming being able to, we broaden that to just being able to talk about your faith.
Okay, the truth is, so long as you know Jesus, it doesn't matter how much you know of the Bible, but I'm going to caveat that in a second. So you can I know people that are not even Christians that are great evangelists. Honestly, I like people that I know who are not Christians, who brought their friends who are not Christians along to events and have actually been having conversations with me about the Christian faith to their friends. They're not an evangelist in the strict sense, because obviously you've got to be a Christian to be one of them. Sure. But the truth is, you can have been a Christian 1 second and you've got enough in you to share your faith. However, let's not use that as an excuse not to get to know the Bible. So, for example, Danny, I'm from Bradford, as you know. You lived in Leeds? You didn't live in the posh part of Leeds, like you actually live in Leeds?
Yeah, we lived in Pudsey and Farsley.
That was the posh part. I lived in Pudsey for a while. But yeah. But I you may not know it because you lived in the rough end. But so mate, I'm from Bradford. Okay, lots of Asians in Bradford who know the Quran. If an Asian person, a Muslim particularly, because of course when you say Asian, there's a broad scope of different nationalities and cultures. But let's say I'm speaking to a Muslim and they know the Quran and often know the Bible better than some Christians, or speaking to a Jehovah's Witness who often know your Bible better than you know it, then I don't think it says much about our faith if we don't get to know it and use it to articulate our faith.
Sure.
So I that's why I wanted just to caveat it, because actually I do think if you want to be more effective, I think you get to know the scripture. But for me, it's like I just want to know the book about my Jesus that I'm trying to tell people about. And so there's got to be this determination, I think, to get to know it. That doesn't mean that we say John 14:6 says.
Yeah. I
never say that. I always say, like, there's this great little sentence in the Bible that says this. So it's not about just parrot fashion quoting it. We've got to be relevant. But yeah. So yeah, we don't need to know the Bible per se, but I would argue we need to get to know the Bible so that we can use it and understand that what we're sharing is sound. But God's God, and he'll just use us, won't he?
Come on.
That's the beautiful thing.
Most definitely. Just a quick few shout outs. So good to see you, Matthew. Catherine's on, Katie's on, Carol's on. She's watching from Malvern. And Rachel's on. So we've got quite a few on. So another question's just come through here. How old were you when you first shared your faith then?
So I would have I became a Christian at 12. So it would have been sometime not long after that I shared my faith with my school friends. I also very early on, my pastor at the time, who was a gentleman called Godfrey Fern. Right. He was the pastor of the Elim church in Bradford. Danny, not to your level, but I could sing a little bit. And I wrote a few songs which, mate, I'm really glad I've not found them. They were rubbish. Rubbish. It was like Jesus died for me on Calvary. Do you know what I mean? It's that kind of it's that kind of thing, you know, with DG and A. That's all you need.
But
Status Quo made
I
millions,
tell you
didn't it?
what, as an aside, I wish we had some more songs that mentioned
Yeah,
Calvary.
Well, no, it's a fair point. Yeah, absolutely. That gospel message, isn't it? Definitely. So, so I was going around the Salvation Army hostels when I was sort of 13 years old in front of lots of these sort of homeless and alcoholic people. And I was going around different places because my youth group, even though I wasn't old enough to go, they let me come because, of course, I was new to it all. So early on, mate, I was sharing my faith. I was encouraged. I was thrown in at the deep end before I even learned how to do it, really. So I'm going to say around 12 and a half, 13, I'm going to say, is when I first shared my faith. First preached when I was in a church when I was 14.
Wow! So you got going pretty quick then once you were
early doors.
Once you kind of made that decision. So let's think about. So when was there a kind of encounter moment that chucked you, because you said obviously you went away and you got trained in evangelism, so talk about was that just a gradual thing and you thought, well, okay, I'll do that, or was there this sort of God-given moment that kind of went, oh, that's what I'm called to do?
Yeah. That is really high, that note, mate. That is amazing. I would say almost angelic. I would think that's a semitone down from the angels, if I'm honest.
Only dogs can hear it.
I know. They're all just queuing up outside your house, aren't they? Coming from miles away. But it was, so I was back in the day, Elim. I don't know if you remember this, mate. They had a Bible week called Bognor Bible Week. Yes. And in Bognor Regis, I mean, gosh, Bognor Bible Week doesn't do a lot, does it, for you? But we used to go down, and in the youth meeting, a preacher by the name of Barry Killock was preaching, and he said there are people here in this youth meeting that God is calling into full-time ministry. I would have probably been about 14 at the time. I knew in that moment that God was calling me into full-time ministry. Now, at that moment, I thought it was as a pastor, because in Elim, the obvious route, or the only route, really, was that you'd go to Elim Bible College, be trained as a pastor, and you'd pastor a church. However, fast forward 3.5 years, and I'm in my church in Bradford. There's a gentleman by the name of Corky Davey. You may have heard of Corky if you've done the sketchboard. He's an evangelist that ran a school of evangelism. He's preaching on mission and evangelism. And at the end of that service, I'm closing my eyes for the closing prayer. And I have this vivid oil painting-esque freeze frame of a load of people kind of falling off the edge of a cliff. Wow. That broke me. And I cried fairly solidly, apart from to the point where I actually had to take the day off on Monday from work, because from the Sunday, the Monday and the Tuesday, I was just crying. I mean, there'd be times when I'd stop, but then the image would come and I'd be gone again. And I was like, what is this about? So I spoke to my pastor, because like, if you don't know stuff, you speak to your pastor, don't you? That's what you do. So I spoke to him. And he said, Mark, do you know what? And this was a guy now, wasn't Godfrey, it was Bob McDonald. Godfrey moved on to another church, and Bob McDonald had come to take on the pastorate in Bradford. And he said to me, do you know what, Mark? I believe that God has broken you and given you a passion and a compassion for those who don't know Jesus. He said, it's my firm opinion that he's calling you to be an evangelist, not a pastor. And I believe you need to go to the Bristol School of Evangelism and train to be an evangelist, because if you felt you wanted to be a mechanic, you wouldn't go to medical school. He said, so it's your call, but I respected him. He said, I'll support you in whatever you do. But I knew. And so a few months later, I left Bradford. I was working as a butcher. My boss said, keep your job open for you. It's here for you. but he said, I don't think you'll be coming back because this is what you were born for.
Wow.
So that's even non-Christians recognizing. So, because I shared my faith loads with them, we'd have, it was Rawson Market, Danny. I don't know if you remember that back in Bradford, an old Victorian meat market. And we'd have these debates with loads of butchers. They're all firing these questions at me. And so, that freeze frame oil painting, the sort of thing that Helen might paint, it was kind of this vivid. I believe God was showing me a picture of hell.
Wow.
And people dying without him. That's what it was. And that's what broke me. So that was it's a defining moment, mate. Defining moment.
Yeah. Wow. I tell you what, let's take a quick break. We're going to listen to some music and then we're going to be back shortly. This is a track I was privileged to voice at the One Event conference recently that was online. You can find all these tracks over on the Alive, which is a church that I'm part of, YouTube page to be able to have a look at that. This is Great Things, I think it is. We'll be back after this. So we're back here with Mr. Mark
that.
Greenwood. Did you enjoy that?
I did, mate. I loved it. Really good.
I'll tell you a story
Good
about.
song, actually.
I'll tell you a story about that because we were filming for this sort of conference of one event, which we do every year. This year it was online, but as we were filming, shall we say that the weather wasn't particularly reliable. So if you imagine all that electrical stuff that's out there,
My goodness
and then
me.
all of a sudden we had all the car boots just offset that were wide open because it just would randomly like throw it down. So everybody would literally pick up the nearest thing they've got and peg it to a car and shove it in. And then once it's gone, we'd come back out and carry on. And that was the lot for a couple of days. So it was all good fun.
Yeah, the things people don't see behind the masterpiece, eh?
Well, that's the thing. That's most definitely the thing. So we're going to move on slightly because let's go down reminiscing lane again because actually we'll get to, and there's a few things I want to sort of talk about. But phrase thought camp.
Yes, come on.
Because we've done a few of those as well. I've not been for many years, which we do need to rectify. To be fair,
we need to sort that out. When we get back meeting, we'll get you back up, mate. That'd be great.
Most definitely would love to do that. Yeah. But talk about that. What is phrase thought camp? Because this is effectively probably an audience that won't know what phrase thought is and what they can access from it.
Yeah, so Fraysthorpe actually is a small village to the south of Bridlington, which, as the crow flies, is probably only about a mile. We don't actually meet there anymore. So we actually meet in a place up near Middlesbrough, near Stockton-on-Tees. It's a bit more inland. A lot of that farm's not even there now because of coastal erosion. I mean, it's got pretty well battered, or certainly the road into it. So it's now called Elim Festival. And like you, last year, we suddenly had to turn something around and go online. So Elim Festival, it's a family-based festival. It's got a strong evangelistic edge to it. We have meetings for the whole family at it. It's about 550 people plus some day visitors. So it's not the sort of the size that some of the bigger festivals are, but it's got a real kind of community family feel to it. And yeah, really evangelical. In fact, I now lead that festival. Have done so for about 4 or 5 years now. So yeah, we'll definitely get you up, mate.
I would love that. So
but it's amazing.
Is there like a website they can go and look at? Because I'm assuming it's open. Is it open to anyone? I suppose who's got the faith? Yeah,
absolutely. Yeah, I mean, obviously, only people that know somebody who goes there tend to know about it because we've not done lots of advertising. We are going to do a little bit more because we do feel actually we're a little bit like, the world's best kept secret, really. So we do feel we ought to just do a little bit more promotion. But yeah, anybody can come, elimfestival.org.uk. If you just go online and look and Google it, there'll be all the updates. There's no updates about this year at the moment because we're just thrashing out, though we're probably going to make a public announcement on Monday as to what we're doing. But I can't say what we are or we aren't doing here.
We went very BBC then, aren't we? I'm not going to answer that question.
So what are you doing at Elim Festival this year? Well, we're going to have a festival this year of sorts. We're not quite sure what we're doing yet. We'll give a very vague answer. But yeah, anybody can come, mate. It's a genuine family festival as well. So there's something right across the age ranges. And I actually think it's quite unique in lots of ways as a festival, partly because it's smaller. It's got a certain vibe and thing that we do that you wouldn't necessarily get at one of the bigger festivals. So it has a difference, shall we say. But yeah,
I always remember we used to fondly call, I don't know whether she's kind of sort of still around, but we used to call her tent lady. And it was almost like It was almost like you click your heels like Dorothy, go tent lady, tent lady, tent lady, and she'd appear.
She could fix anything with a
She
needle
could.
and thread. That lady, she was amazing. Yeah, no, she's not there now.
Oh,
but
bless.
she was amazing.
Yeah, and
absolutely.
all the kind of squirty stuff to make tents waterproof. And...
Yeah, absolutely. When we first started going to Freystore, we had this thing called Bora Bora, Danny. I don't know whether you remember that. It was
Vaguely.
basically, I'm not going to go into too much detail, but if I was just to say, it was a manual emptying of toilets, and it involved a jeep and a rather bumpy journey to a cesspit at the other end of the field. And we'll just leave it at that. We'll leave it at that. We don't need to say anything more.
It's what I think. Thankfully, when you do the worship, you don't tend to do that type of thing.
No,
you get out of it so long.
Yeah. Why do you think so many people wanted to volunteer to be on the worship team? That's the reason why.
Oh wow! So that's another string to your bow. So let's move on, because you're an author as well, aren't you? So you do a bit of writing. So if I just bring this up, let's talk about this. So big yes, little yes, healthy maybe. What's it about?
Here it is. I was going to say here it is in the flesh, but it's the other way around, isn't it? You've got to do the reverse camera thing. There you go. So I've written a load of stuff, but most of what I've written before have been resources to help you do evangelism. So I've got a book called, now that is a good answer, which is answering tricky questions, for example. But this is the first book I've actually written about evangelism.
Sure.
And somebody said to me, when I was writing it about a year and a half ago, they said to me, how long has it taken you to write this book? And I said, about 31 years.
Wow.
And I actually mean it, because the book represents my own insights. You know, I mentioned early on in our chat about feeling that God's given me a passion and an insight as to the process by which people come to faith. This book is all about understanding the journey by which people come to faith, and how we can understand this is not, I mean, it's a modern word, isn't it? Hey, we're all on a journey. Actually, it's a biblical principle. It's only in the last 300 years that we've put this massive emphasis on doing a preach of the gospel, getting somebody to make a decision, and then you're in. That's if you actually go back to Bible times, and way before the sort of 300 years, it was all about journey. Jesus called the first disciples onto a journey. That's what rabbis did. They said, look, come and follow me for about 2 or 3 years, learn what it's all about. And the early church created this thing called catechesis, which was, it was almost like their alpha, but it lasted for 3 years.
Wow. Because
people were making judgments about this newfound Christian faith thing that was growing like wildfire. And they were making judgments and statements about it. And the early church was saying, hey, look, don't make a judgment about it. Come and watch us. Come and learn from us. Watch why we behave like we behave. Watch why we believe what we believe. Watch why we do what we do, and why we worship like we worship. Come with us, and then make a judgment about us. And I feel that particularly in the Western church, that we have predominated in what I call the big yes, which is preaching the gospel, giving somebody everything that they need, and expecting them to make a decision. Now, I'm not saying for 1 minute that we should stop doing that. That's not the point of the book. It's rather about recognizing that actually for some people, they need to make a little yes, which is a decision to investigate, to find out more. Other people, actually, if you shared the gospel with an atheist and they are prepared to consider that there may be a God, that's quite probably the biggest decision they'll ever make.
Wow.
Yeah. And it might be a philosophical decision rather than a theological decision. The willingness to change their philosophical position and say, well, maybe there is a God, could well be the biggest decision that person will make. And it's about cheering those on and recognizing those, and going to Paul speaking to King Agrippa and Festus. And Festus shouts out, "You're out of your mind." And Paul says, "I'm not out of my mind. What I'm saying is reasonable and true." The problem for us as Christians is we've often talked about it just as though it's true, and we need to spend more time showing people that it's reasonable. And then King Agrippa says, "Do you think in such a short time you can persuade me to become a Christian?" And Paul's response, most accurately portrayed in the King James, says, "Short time or long. I pray that not only you, but all who are listening here today will become as I am, except for these chains." And so Paul, who we so often think about an overnight conversion, actually, if you look into his story, you realize it wasn't an overnight conversion. Paul understood this journey, and he was committed to the short term or long term. And that's what we talk about in the book, and really unpack it. Look at it in the first part. Look at it from a biblical perspective. Look at it from all sorts of different perspectives. Got loads of testimonies of people who've been on a journey. And then the second part of the book is then how we translate that understanding into planting churches, into social action, into personal evangelism, into preaching, and into church evangelism. So it's how we take all of that into that.
I actually think just that phrase there, big yes, little yes, healthy maybe, is actually quite free. When you think about a personal evangelism, to me, already just looking at that sentence, lifts a load of pressure.
Oh, it does.
Because we're conditioned, I suppose, to give whoever we meet the Damascus Road experience, and that's, bang, boom, off we go. When the reality of it is, certainly in personal evangelism, certainly I've found, is that we are looking at the little yeses and the healthy maybes before the big yes comes.
Absolutely.
And we, certainly from my kind of church background, I feel even in personal evangelism, we need the big yes, and knowing that actually we might get, quite big kickback sometime, polite ones if they're friends, but we will get that kind of feeling of, oh, this is what's going on. But we've gone for that big yes, and we've not got it. And so we get kind of disheartened, we get kind of like, I can't do that, how do I feel? But to actually grasp that understanding that actually it's a little yes, it's a healthy maybe, and it shifts your focus to go, well, actually this is about a relationship with that person. It's not just, do you want to get to know Jesus? No. Well, what do we do with our relationship then? Absolutely. I'll see you in 6 months. Sorry about that. I'm feeling embarrassed. Whereas that to me, I just, and I, coming down this for years and years, and we share our faith, but just those few words there, even now. Even me, I don't know, but I go, whoa, that's a way off.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Oh, mate, 100%. So I have had people who are Christians have contact me in tears because they've just seen the cover of the book, and then they've read the book, and it's liberated them and actually made them share their faith more. But here's the interesting thing, mate. I've had people who are not Christians who've actually said to me, "Mark, you've liberated me because you've permissioned me to go and investigate the Christian faith without feeling that I've got to become one." And the feeling that somebody might be pressurized or got to become one if they show any kind of interest. So I've had non-Christians coming up to me regularly who've said to me, "Do you know, I'm definitely a little yes." I mean, how powerful is that when somebody who's not a Christian recognizes where they are on that journey and then confesses it and speaks it out with their mouth? I think it's really powerful. But also it can help you. So I was on the way back from London. I was chatting with a lady on the train. She asked me what I did, and I've got my set little kind of lingo that I go through. And then I said to her, she was in marketing. I said, "Oh, I've got something that you'll find fascinating." She said, "What's that?" I said, "I've created this framework for helping people think about faith." She said, "Oh, what is it?" I said, it's big yes, little yes, healthy maybe." She said, "Oh, tell me more. That sounds really fascinating." So I explained the 3 different elements to her, and I said, "Now you'll know that in marketing, that half the challenge is convincing somebody who thinks they don't want what you're offering them, but it can radically change their life."
Yeah.
She says, "Yeah, absolutely." So we chatted more around that, and I said to her, just out of interest, and I do this loads, just out of interest, which are you? She said, I'm definitely the healthy maybe. And then I said to her, I said, what would it take for you to become a little yes? And she said, oh gosh, I don't. She said, I guess I don't really know. I said, well, if I felt that I knew and that I could help you to at least consider whether you might want to become a little yes, would that be something that you're interested in? She said, yeah, I think I would be, yeah. Because I'm not going now, oh, I found an opening, let's go in and preach the whole gospel to her. I'm journeying with her at her pace, and I'm almost, through asking questions and conversation, helping her to discover actually where she is in this. So she's definitely healthy maybe, but would be willing to become a little yes. And so we were able to meet up and discuss. I use that approach a lot with people, and it's quite liberating.
Wow. We've got a question here, which we'll put up there. Yeah. So Mark asks, wondering if you have used faith questionnaires and what you feel about them.
That's from my friend called Neil Walpole. Hi, Neil. Great to see you. Yeah, I do like faith questionnaires. The only thing I would say about faith questionnaires is that they can be, if not used correctly, they can be a little bit, I don't want to say deceptive, because I don't believe that that's the intention, but it's like you start off by, this is a slightly extreme example, what's your favorite car? You know, a Ferrari. And then you end up by question 6, do you want to become a Christian? Do you know what I mean? And it's like, it's that's a bit of an extreme picture, but there's a danger that we can be not as transparent as we should be. So I've actually created a questionnaire that I use called Good, Bad, or Far Worse. And I just say I've got 6 questions to ask you. And a couple of them are to do with faith, but that's not where we're starting. Is that okay? And then I'll go so that I can just be a bit more transparent. So yeah, use them. I think they're great at getting into dialogue, but I think we just need to be a little bit careful.
Cool. So I'll tell you, I'll put this up because this is where you can get said book, I believe. And
it is the very place, yeah.
And all your other resources that you have, because I'm believing for you that you'll shift a few of these, because I think that they're just on that sentence alone, it's a must buy, definitely.
Yeah. No, well, Danny, can I be a little bit bold?
Yeah.
I with Big Yes Healthy Maybe, I didn't write the book because I thought, oh, it's about time I wrote another book. I didn't even write a book because I was a national evangelist building a strategy, and I'd not written a book about evangelism. I actually, and this is where I've been allowing myself to be a little bit bold with this resource only. I actually believe that God has put something in my heart and soul for the UK church to become more effective at reaching their friends and family. Now, actually, I have it on good authority from people in African nations, in Australia, in India, that this, whilst the Big Yes Healthy Maybe might not literally translate, the topics that it covers are as true anywhere. But I really believe it's got a prophetic edge to it, and I don't use that phrase lightly. And I've been amazed at how this has been grabbed by a lot of people around the UK in Christian organisations and churches. It's really, God's really, really using it. And so I'm just going to say to people, a little bit of boldness. If you're really serious about reaching people for Jesus, then you need to buy the book. And I don't talk about that. I don't talk about any of my other resources like that, but it's a conviction I've got, mate. It really, really is.
Yeah. No, I would agree. So that's where you can get it from, RevMarkGreenwood.com, and go get it. I mean, I'm working like a small group discussion as well, do you think, as a resource?
Well.
See what I did there?
Yes. You're working it tonight, Danny. You need to get a 20% cut. Okay, so I'll bring it a little bit closer to the camera. This study guide takes each of the 10 chapters, and there are questions key verses, prayers, and action. So I wrote this because I got a lot of pastors saying to me, we'd love to use it in our small groups. Do you have any questions or anything? And more churches like small group study stuff. So yeah, people can get that as well. What I would say is if people want to buy bulk buy, go onto my website and email me, because obviously if people buy it as a, one of those in one book, that's fine. But if they're wanting to buy to do it with small groups and their churches, then obviously we discount quite a lot the more copies they buy. So don't think, oh yeah, I want 10 for mine, and then buy 10 copies of the book and 10 copies of the study guide, because you'll be paying more than you need to pay. It's all about getting it out, really.
Wow.
But yeah, it's perfect for it.
Wow. So there we go. So make sure that you kind of you go and grab that. I mean, one thing that has been really remiss of me actually is we forgot to talk about family. So let's do a quick catch up family wise, because we're both married, both got kids, but I'll let you go first.
Yeah, I think you'll get away with it, mate, because they're not bothered about listening to me. They've got pizza and films, so they'd much rather watch that. Which breaks my heart, as you can understand.
Competing for the Wi-Fi.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, I've got a wife and two fantastic daughters. My oldest daughter is slap bang in the middle of GCSE year, whatever that's going to be. And my youngest daughter is 13 and a half. We had kids quite late. I am 51. We had kids quite late on in life. My wife is a very successful business analyst, and so her career was doing really, really well. So we thought, let's let that develop. And then she took some time out, did a whole bunch of things because she's a very clever person. And then just in the last 18 months or so, felt it right to get back into that. So
is she into photography as well? I seem to remember, is it?
She's very good at photography, but she's not. She's into it in as much as she likes taking nice photographs. But she's not a trained photographer. Just one of those annoying people who just can see it, got the eye for it. That's the thing. A little bit like you, really. You've got an amazing, mate. I love your photographs.
Oh, thank you.
On your walks. Even your little selfies look like you're a flipping top model. They're brilliant, mate.
Wow. Now I do like it. I mean, certainly while we're kind of locked down, I have the ability to wander and the ability to take it all in and think about
it. Mate. You don't wander. You flipping hike, mate. You put some right miles in. I don't think anybody can accuse you of wandering.
Well, my last pair of shoes. Because I mean, if you think I probably do, the minimum that I would walk is 10 miles a day. So and even on a Sunday, so I still even get space before service and do what we need to do. So if you do the maths on that, 300 and how many is it? 300 and how many days of the year?
Mate, I got unclassified in my maths. Don't ask me to do the maths on it. We need to get somebody to message in the answer. So it's 10 miles a day, 365 days a year.
So it's going to be over 3,000.
Is that 365,000? No, I'm going to get my calculator out, mate. Right, let's do it, mate. Live on air. 10 miles a day times by 365 equals 3,650 miles a year you walk.
That's what my pair of high-tech rather cheaply bought shoes did last time. So
mate, they've done well.
They have done well. I have since treated myself thinking, well, I think I'm getting to be pretty serious about walking now. So I have upgraded my footwear. But yeah.
But mate, are you really motivated to do it, or do you have to really kick yourself into action some days?
No, it's weird because I think it's like any change that you make in your life. The first 3 months is, hell on earth. It's like, what am I doing? Your body's all over the place. And then now, whether people think it's healthy or not, I don't know what people thought it would be, but I don't feel right unless I've walked.
No, I get that. That's really good.
So when I get up, the first thing I do is bang, I've got to go, and then my day starts.
Are you up early though to go for an early doors walk?
Well, in lockdown and this current season, because my work pattern's been sporadic, so I worked through at school because I kind of teach in school as well, and then the days that I've kind of had the grace to be able to walk in the daylight. But in normal every day, I would be up at 5, come rain, shine, light or dark.
Wow.
And then I'd do an hour and a half, and then I'd be off to work. So, yeah,
that's good, mate.
Yeah, no, I mean that was started. I mean, but the reason why I did it, I mean, it's interesting. I know we're slightly changing, and it's not about me; it's about you.
I'm going to sing a song in a minute.
But I actually hit quite an aggressive health crisis. Probably, I say about 3 years ago now. So at my heaviest, I was like 23.11, nearly 24 stone. And so I was as diabetic as you could be before you were called diabetic. You know, they basically said, shall we call it lower back pain, mobility, breathing, all those issues that you would accumulate to that. I mean, I could even go down and tie my own laces, or if I did, I had to think what else I could do down there because it would take me so long to get back up. And so and then this one night, this is quite a bit. I had asthma, and officially, I suppose today I do, but although it's like non-existent. I took my inhaler because when I start training, and it normally flares up, and I took it half asleep because I woke up thinking, oh, I need my inhaler. Took my inhaler, and we all know if you take an inhaler right, it's effective. So effectively, what it does, it makes your heart rate go up. So I was completely off it on sleep, not awake. And I took it the best I ever took it. My heart rate rocketed. And then sort of mental health wise, I didn't know whether I was coming or going for about 2 or 3 months. I just hit this really weird wall of, this is not right. And what I think the crux of what happened was, and this is where it laid, there was a disconnect. And the way I put it, there was a disconnect between how I felt about myself and knowing how God felt about me.
Wow.
And it got me so it was like a perfect storm. So driving around, as you probably do. So, I used to be the pasty at the service station. It used to be whatever, we joke about the curries after we've done something. Well, there was far too many, there was all that kind of stuff, and there was a lot of laziness that kicked in because it was so busy focus, and it was almost as if I had to get to this cliff top to reset absolutely sort of everything. So my headspace was, and it still is that I haven't set a goal for weight loss. So currently, because people do ask me, I'm 14.5. So if you do 23.11 down to 14.5, that's a big effort. That's a big effort. But the moment I would stick a goal in, or I would stick something like that in, and I get that, then my behaviour would change again, and it would go back to old ways. Or if I did a diet ends. There's all this type of stuff. So I went on this journey of understanding how God saw me, how God felt about me, and started, dwelling on those things in life, and not dwelling on the kind of the aspects of the goals of it, and just started to live healthy. Just started to go, I want to see my kids grow up. I want to be around a bit longer. I've got a ministry and a calling. Actually, I need to prove, in some way worthy of that calling, and making sure that the temple is looked after. And so my whole philosophy in look and food is completely different. So I eat to sustain life and sustain what I do. If I go to Calvary, I can have 1 Yorkshire pudding. I don't need 2. I don't even need a pudding if I don't need it. So now completely diabetic free. I've got mobility back. I can tie my own shoelaces. I can breathe. I can beat my boy up a flight of stairs, and he'll be panting, and I'll be like, "Come on!" and not look back. And so it was 3 months of I don't know what I'm doing, and then now it's a lifestyle. It's almost like built in my DNA, and I do it as an act of worship and to sustain my life.
Brilliant, mate. Love that.
Which is a bit of a side step for us, isn't it? But
It is.
hopefully
We're
that's
going to
worth
take
it.
a break, and in the next bit of the program, I feel like
We
I'm
are.
be the MC now.
Let's do
good,
it.
though, mate. That's helpful. That's inspirational.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of these days, I'm actually going to try. I'm going to pick my my interviewer, and I'll do a whole whole series.
You should.
And see what we do. So actually, let's do that. So we'll take this song, and then we'll do the last section, because I want us to talk about the good news sort of initiative that you're doing there.
Brilliant, mate.
This is another one from my church's YouTube page, sort of a live Lincoln, and this is Won't Stop Now.
I give you glory for
So we are back with my mate Mark Greenwood, and this is going to be our final kind of section of the evening. So, Mark, it's been a great evening so far.
It's been lovely.
I've really enjoyed it. We've got some new guys. We've got Stephen on, Rick's on, Josie's on. So we've got Terence is on. So we've got some people that are tuning in and listening in. So this last section, I want you to talk about this. Let me do my magic pokery.
What is he going to do
Boom!
now?
There. So talk to us about this. Really good news. It's such an amazing initiative, and having looked at some of the posts that you've been doing and kind of trying to find out about myself, I just think it's so worthwhile to highlight. So talk about it.
Thank you. Yeah, really excited about it actually. So we've been doing, like most people, some online stuff as churches and as a denomination, and I've been working on various things for the summer, for Christmas. And so this was originally what we're going to do for Easter. But as I began to plan, it was going to be called Elim Easter time. We'd done Elim summertime, Elim Christmas time, Elim Easter time. But it felt that it was more than just some Easter resources. And there's a long journey behind it, which I won't go too much into. But suffice it to say, I've really felt excited by this that God has placed in my heart. So what is really good news? We are going to post a 60-second testimony from somebody every day in March on our Elim social media. I would love it if people from Elim and outside of Elim could reshare it. So literally, if you go on Twitter and put Elim Pentecostal in either Twitter, Facebook or Instagram, it'll bring up our social media. You can follow us, and even if you unfollow us afterwards, that's fine. But if you follow us, you will see these daily posts, and then you can reshare them. And I've listened to them all. I've personally got them all in, invited people to 31 all through March. Really powerful variety of stories. And then over the Easter weekend, we're doing 4 evangelistic services online. And then on the 21st of April through to the 7th of July, we've invited as many Elim churches as possible to do a live online alpha.
Wow.
So, yeah, I'm going to be hosting that. And as of this evening, we've got 120 churches signed up after about 3 weeks. So really pleased with that. So, yeah, and we're just calling it really good news. And it's just bringing hope in hard times, and it just seems to have something about it. It's got some traction. I believe the Spirit of God is all over it. I really do. I'm really excited.
So make sure that you do get on board with that. Kind of go and check that out. Make sure that you're sharing those posts. But it kind of leaves me, because obviously it's Alpha Online, and we mentioned it online. And I suppose in these closing moments, I wouldn't say that we're old school necessarily, but we're used to in person. So whether we're in the city centre talking with people, whether we're on a platform in a church, or whether we're in a field, or whatever we're doing, we're used to sort of seeing somebody face to face and speaking to them. And so, in a sense, the message hasn't. Well, not in a sense, the message hasn't changed. It's still the same gospel. It's still the same thing we're talking about. Yeah. But how we present it, and actually how we sort of bring that to the masses, is different. So
absolutely.
Have you got kind of sort of tips, thoughts, processes?
So first of all, let me say about Alpha, for example. If I might do another small plug, I do a podcast on the National Evangelism vision of Elim, where we're exploring it. If people search for Anchor Mark Greenwood, it'll take them to the hosting site, and they can then go to whatever platform, whether it's iTunes or Spotify, and sign up and listen to the podcast. But specifically, listen to a podcast I did with Nicky Gumbel, who talked about the fact that people said to him for a long time, you need to do Alpha Online, and he resisted it, and he resisted it, and he resisted it. And he said to me, Mark, I couldn't have been any more wrong. He said, I would say now that Alpha is more effective online than it is in person, though they will still do in-person Alpha when they can, but they'll never not do online Alpha. So that's worth an exploration and a listen. I think what I would say, but I would say this is true. There's a phrase being coined. I've forgotten now. Is it Ed Stetzer? Might be Ed Stetzer that coined it. But anyway, the phrase is this phygital.
Wow.
That all of our church, and I certainly believe this is so true of evangelism, it's got to be a fusion of physical and digital. So really good news is initially about our online evangelism, but we're gonna push it out for our in-person evangelism as well. And what I would say, right now in our world, we are in an existential moment. People are thinking about God like never before and prayer like never before. Why? It's not necessarily that they're, lost their job, lost their family, or I better become a Christian. No, it's not that. What's happened is all the things that we have depended upon and trusted in have been taken from us almost overnight, including, sadly, in some instances, loved ones.
Yeah.
We're living in the land of the valley of the shadow of death. My friend Andy Can from Chesterfield Redeemer King Church said that to me, and it stuck with me. So we're confronted by death, the great enemy of the soul. The minute you confront people with mortality in a way that is undeniable, the minute the things that we trust upon are taken from us, people are vulnerable. They don't know what is it all about, and they begin to ask those existential questions, whether it's explicitly asking them or implicitly asking them. But they're living in a place where they're wondering what everything is all about. And when people arrive in that place, that's when they start to investigate. So I think we've got a huge amount of healthy maybes and a huge amount of people that are willing to become little yeses. And we have to connect with people online because we're going to have the potential to reach more people online than ever. Some are saying that the online space is the new mission field. I think I would agree that it's a new mission field.
Yeah.
Because we swing a lot in the church. We've got to be careful we don't go, right, it's all about online, so let's forget about the physical.
Yeah.
It's not about that. It's about saying this is a new opportunity. Don't we say in evangelism, go where the people are? Yeah. Well, the people are there, so let's go there. I've got to be a little bit careful, mate, because I can rabbit on for ages about all sorts of stuff. Free ebook. So Big Yes, Little Yes, Healthy Maybe is the physical book that people can see on my website. If they go on my website again and look for Big Yes, Little Yes, Healthy Maybe, but underneath it says online, that's a free ebook forward by Phil Cook, Hollywood film director and producer, one of the leading, most influential speakers, it's said, in the world at the moment, but particularly in the area of communication and digital. And I mean, the guy's phenomenal. He's kindly done a forward for it. And people can go there and explore the online space. And then if people went to the Elim Pentecostal YouTube channel, we've actually done an online digital conference, whole day's conference, where we're exploring all sorts of stuff. And so some people could go there as well and have a little look at the mission field. That's what I would say.
Wow. Mate, do you know what? It's been such a joy to kind of be catching up with you again. We can't leave it as long as we have this again, ever.
No.
Ever.
We won't. No, I agree. We won't, mate.
And let's make sure we keep talking and kind of interacting. And this broadcast goes out and people have watched it. I've got comments coming in on text on the different platforms it's streaming to, people being blessed and actually commenting on the Big Yes, Little Yes, Healthy Maybe. And so let's hope we can spread the word further and get people really free and able to share their faith in these sort of times that we're at.
Yeah.
So we're going to close out with a song, mate, and this song it was taken on a phone, so it's original sound, so you're going to have to sort of forgive that, but it's an important song, right. and the song really was. I did this at one of the one event evenings where it was it was the last one we did before lockdown, and it was really hot, and it was really sweaty, and it was all those stuff. But the story behind the song is that my lad, he went into hospital, and he's got far too many kind of challenges to face for such a young man, bless him, and he ended up having to have quite major brain surgery.
Oh, gosh.
And we were in hospital, and one of the things that I love to read is the Psalms. And the reason why I love the Psalms is because you always start in a place of, you're quite low, you're acknowledging what life is, but then you change your head and you lift your head and you begin to focus and declare the things of God. And I think certainly in the world that we're living in today, the message of this song is really, really relevant, because we're living in a world of two realities where we have to acknowledge the world has fallen. There's all kinds of yuckiness that goes on. But if that's what we focus on, that'll be what will control us. That will become our compass, our navigation to say, this is... So like if I'd focused on that with Isaac and said, Isaac, we're not going to get through this. I don't know what we're going to do. It's awful. Focusing on the earthly reality, or to go, there's a higher reality of who God is in our life. Amen. Isaac, he's your healer, he's your sustainer, he's your strong tower, he's all those things. And I just think there's so many people that could be watching this, and sort of in the communities that I know, that are in that place of the two realities, and we just need to lift our head and look at the higher reality. I lift my eyes up to the hills from where my help comes from, and allow God to become that compass. Allow God. It's almost like you sit in a Range Rover from a Mini, so you still go through all that stuff, but your view is different. The way that you drive a Range Rover is completely different to the way you drive a Mini. Yeah, it is. Because you drive it in confidence. You'd go through the waters, but you're above it. You can see what God is doing. And that's the kind of thing where we need to get to. So this song is called Through This Space. It really wasn't a well-crafted song, you have to say, Mark. It was literally just It was literally just a cry of a dad's heart, and there's a testimony that goes along with this. So it's about 5-6 sort of minutes long, but this is what we're going to play out with, and it's going to end up our sort of broadcast. So, Mark, really appreciate you being on.
Thanks for having me, mate.
Absolutely. Brilliant. If you stay put, like we say, and we'll continue the conversation sort of after this, after we've gone. But to everybody else, thanks so much for being on. We've got some more great guests lined up next month. So wait and see when they drop, and see who we've got coming. The kind of conversation will change, the kind of issues that we'll talk about will change, but it will still be God-focused, faith-filled, and hopefully inspiring in your everyday sort of life. So it remains for me to say, as I always say, stay well, stay safe, and stay blessed. See you later, Mark. God bless you. Thank you so much.
Bye.
As a family where that song actually means so much. I always say talk about it, but I'm going to, because I'm his dad and I have dad rights. But my boy Isaac is sat there and he's got his camera on, so he's filming me. That's nice. A very special young man, born with so many challenges in life. And part of what happened accumulated in Isaac needing to have quite major surgery, brain surgery, to help him to get to where he is today. In those dark moments, as a dad, stood beside the hospital bed going, do you know what, I would do anything in this world to take that pain. Anything in that world just to give you that little bit of relief. And I remember one night when I was sleeping over in the hospital, because me and Kate took turns doing that, as you do, and just kneeling by his bed as Isaac was
cold, on medication, different things, and began to sing prophetically. And it was, I think it was for like 2 o'clock in the morning actually. So the nurses enjoyed that one. So it wasn't really meant for public consumption. It's not really a particularly crafted, well-written song, but it was a heart of a father that just was crying out to God. And maybe tonight, in some of the situations that you're finding yourself in, that I believe God doesn't want you to walk out with tonight, maybe this song can be sung prophetically over you. There's nothing in my hands that I would not give to you. There's nothing in this world I know that you can pull me through. But as I'm leaning down in this darkest night, as the rain is coming down as sharp as knives, all I can say, maybe this could be your prayer as you reach out to God. Won't you come and fill this space, overwhelm my heart with grace, as I wait here for you. I long for safe refuge. Won't you come and fill this space? And I said again, and I got louder, and I said, won't you come and fill this space? Overwhelm my heart with grace, as I wait here for you. I long for safe refuge. Won't you come and fill this space? At that moment I stopped. And it was as if, well I say as if, the Holy Spirit went into that space. And my tune changed. And this is what I want to prophesy over you. The situation that you carry. And I see the light. He's coming, and I see the day is dawning, little shoots of faith that's growing in my heart. We'll see the mountains move. And here's what you gotta do, and I lift my head.
And as the nurse looked through the you've come and filled this space. You have overwhelmed my heart with grace. And as I waited here for